Being part of the chaos that is called Albania, I have taken it upon myself to understand why are things here the way they are. So I will start from the roots. Albania is located in the southwest of the Balkan area. Its people have been born and lived there from the very beginning. Recorded history of from about 2000 years ago, since the Roman Empire, described this patch of land to have had its own societal structure, its own kings and queens, so it was quite progressive, its own people, its own culture and tradition, its own language, etc. It has, however, continuously been subject to wars, a considerable number of which were from superpowers of the time. These have crippled its autonomy. Never having reached full growth and potential as a country, the best it did was to survive and pass its culture generation to generation. It is remembered by everyone the resistance made to the Ottoman Empire in the 15th century by the general Skanderbeg. In the early 1900s, there was an attempt made by intellectuals to change the course of history for the country, but it didn't result in a positive change. As a matter of fact, the worst it had ever faced came to be communism. 50 years of extreme pain took the country back some more. As for today, it is run by the mafia, which has turned it in what I have coined as a corruptocracy. However, this overview doesn't do justice to the description of the reality of the situation. As such, I shall give a different overview, one which is relative to identity. Who is the Albanian? All people are the same in every corner of the world, but the Albanian seems to be situated in a rather peculiar environment. He spends on average 2 to 3 hours per day in a coffee shop talking to others of his kind and simultaneously hears on TV politicians whose promises range from "We shall not rob you as openly and clearly as the other party," and "In order to raise the levels of tourism for the city, we will improve the quality of the sun," to "We will make this country the same as the European one, and the oligarchs run this place. Let's bring them down." He is used to hear news about how the mafia is making millions of euros, or how the mafia bombed, shot people, or how the mafia bought the judge, or how the mafia is the judge, or how the mafia is the Minister of Internal Affairs, although charges have been dropped, and is actually working under the supervision of the Prime Minister. The Albanian feels the truth about the structure of his society, but does not know it. It is not part of his awareness of life. Things are like that because like that they are. There has never been a need to question them. As such, he continues his life by making the statement, "I don't give a shit. It doesn't concern me." The remainder of his life is comprised of working a job that, if it is not complete shit, it's 80% shit. And this is because it's almost a miracle for his boss not to be yelling, nay, shouting his lungs out at him. The salary is so low it's almost a tragic joke. The hours are longer than acceptable. The conditions are petty. A dating life which is so basic it belongs to an era of about 1,000 years ago. You meet someone, most likely through social media, you are both good, decent people, you stay together some years, get engaged and then married, soon for kids. The game, however, is almost inexistent. Do you love your partner? Could you pick better? Could you be better to be picked by others? How exactly do you flirt? With DMs? Did you perhaps try to show an overly sweet version of yourself while depressing of the reality of what you are actually like? A broken version of manhood. Because the mafia runs the country, it is so that the hero of the Albanian is actually the anti-hero, the corrupt human being who looks out for his own interests and abuses others to achieve them, instead of the man who looks out for his own and for the interests of the other and pushes forward with the group. This makes it exceptionally difficult to deal with life, but especially with conflictual situations. There's no real way how to fight. It has been the case more times than it should that young boys have killed each other for "what are you looking at?" A very high level of frustration and social anxiety. Bullied by the people who are on the top. You can't look at somebody in a leading position and the default thought that you would have would be, "He worked hard to get it. He's a successful businessman." Nah, more like it's drug money, straight away. This makes up for an overwhelming, negative, toxic, hostile environment. But why is it like this? Why has the mafia taken over? Because the Albanian doesn't know himself. He doesn't know that he can fight for himself and put justice and rule and live life in prosperity. The powerful people are corrupt because they can be, not because that is the natural way how things work. How did it come to this? Albania broke free of communism in the early 90s. For 50 years it had been isolated and its people were tortured under the idea of "we will fight for the mother party." The mother is a carefully placed word in this quotation. The intended meaning behind the usage of that word is to have people think that they are fighting for the good cause while enslaving them. Fighting for the mother party means that you are fighting to create a society in which good people come forth, and not power-hungry people who abuse others. Not only did that not happen, but sadists took over. This left people ruined and hungry for success. After the fall of communism, there was a mass migration of people leaving the fucking country, and a massive rise in crime. Having been put through torture, people wanted more, and if they could, all of it. Crime pays, and it also means that you now have your own share of success. You have achieved it. Change had happened, from pain and failure in the magnitude of disaster to victory. This victory, however, for the most part when it happened inside the country, came through corruption. Communism was horrible. I cannot stress this enough. It doesn't get that much cover in the media, partly because some of its remains lurk in power positions. As disturbing as it sounds, propaganda is still being used to sell an image of a country in progress and flourishment. Embarrassing, unacceptable. The usage of internation camps, the mass hunger, the slave work, the general destruction of society don't seem like factors to make the idea of following communistic ideology unacceptable. Before it, there was a short attempt at making a proper state through an intellectual awakening. There were calls like Feja Shqiptarit të Shqiptaria, roughly translated as "the religion of Albanian is Albanianism," meaning that the identity of the country and its people is to be together, united. It never happened. It did not have a positive result. The other 500 years before it are in the fog. It is spoken very little of, and the main information that is recognized is that people were under Ottoman rule. Enter the hero. Born in Albania in a famous family of the time, George, or it's not a sin if you think of it as George, found himself in a problematic situation. The Ottomans attacked his people and took him to their home country, which is Turkey, I guess. He was away from his family, and the past was dark. He trained and became a professional soldier. After some time he returned back to Albania, which by the way is actually called Shqipëria, but because nobody else can pronounce it, it's officially called Albania, and led its people to freedom from the Ottoman Empire for as long as he was alive. Through military tactics, which include his knowledge of the ways of the Ottomans, his training and experience in the military, and his knowledge of the physical environment, he kept strong and led the Ottomans to defeat. He also attempted a united country, bringing the people and the cities together under his leadership. It maintained for a while, but lack of support from other kingdoms of the time brought inevitable defeat. Big fish eat small fish. He will forever remain as one of the highest figures of his people. There is recorded history of events prior to the 15th century. Because I wasn't very much involved with history class in the 4th grade, I can't say what has happened before then. I could only say that it existed a societal structure with kings and queens, and that wars were fought with neighboring kingdoms for purposes of glory. The resolution. From what I have said, I reached the conclusion that the resolution of the problem is the following plan. The people should know who they are, where they come from, and why they are here. They are to be presented with the idea of work. Build a society for yourself and your children. The current government and its opposition should fall down. In their place, a new party and new opponents should arise. They are to offer change. Because it comes in step, first to be promised and fulfilled are fundamentals: a working, uncorrupt, patriotic police force, a state structure that is not rotten but growing, a working postal office, a working administration, much better infrastructure in general, beginning the war on crime and drugs, and starting the formation of an actual economy. The economy is to be formed following capitalistic ideology. It is known worldwide to work. No form of socialism is to be attempted, not in the root of the change. In further steps, perhaps, there are successful stories of socialist countries. Every opposition that they should have would be to demask them in the case that they are involved in corruption. Thus improvement will come gradually. And please, for the love of God, help advance the country with technology. It's cringy to see how many things could be different and much more efficient with very little effort. It's not about doing that, it's about actually getting to understand my country. The first step of dealing with chaos is to know it, the rest comes right after that. With the resolution, I end this video about my country. I hope I've been informative and helpful to all you who live here and are confused about the events that take place in your life, and to all who would like a more realistic description of a country. I wish you well. Bye!